All the action in India began maybe around the first week of March, and everything stopped with such suddenness that nobody really had any time to prepare for anything. I think it was around that time that somewhere again on a WhatsApp school chat is when the conversation began. And it started with one girl specifically who said, my folks are really close by, so do you mind checking in on them, whose parents are both senior citizens but also severely ill. So we offered to sort of set her parents up with a month-long stock of grocery so that they would not have to step out. And I think that's what really set the ball rolling. Whatever we were discussing in our WhatsApp chat is exactly what I put out on my Facebook wall, which is saying if anybody wants help, I'm happy to go around and do whatever errands there are. Very hearteningly though, it wasn't only people who wanted help that were approaching me. There were a lot of people who said, hey, that's a fabulous idea. We're working from home and we have time on our hands too. So can we join you? That's when the idea was sort of born, that there can be this sort of group which assists people in need. So we called our group Caremongers India. Initially, we started off as a Facebook group. It's less than 8 months since we started and we're at 52,000 members. Very, very quickly into establishing the group, we slowly started seeing requests moving from being more Bangalore-centric to spreading across other states in India as well. Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and then slowly started moving upward where we started getting Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Kolkata, Delhi, Gurgaon, and then we moved even further and we started to go international. As of this moment, we fulfilled 25,000 requests in 17 countries.
My name is Rajiv Ramdranathan and I am a beneficiary of Caremongers India. So my dad was diagnosed with a cancerous tumor in his chest area about a year ago. A lot of his drugs are Schedule X drugs, which means prescriptions need to be filled afresh by a doctor, and these drugs can most often only be sourced in a hospital. My dad went through a bout of pain, his drugs were reconfigured, and we needed to source them afresh. I reached out to Mahita and Caremongers. A message was put out on the group, a volunteer picked it up, but the swiftness with which this happened, a volunteer went down to the hospital, got the medicines, went to my folks' place, and left. Without so much of an opportunity to be thanked. So to the person who did the deed, my dad lives off Old Airport Road. You went to Manipal Hospital to get these medicines and delivered it to them. From me, from my dad, my entire family, our heartfelt gratitude.
That is where you get the real satisfaction. It's something which really gave me good feeling that, okay, I could do something for someone. And that's where I felt, thankful to Caremongers.
And I think that it has demonstrated the vast amount of goodness that people have in them. And I do hope that Caremongers India helps in establishing something like that.
Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Sandberg, I'm the Facebook COO, and I'm so excited to welcome all of you. India is a special place for me. I started my career working at the World Bank in India, but I've spent a lot of time in your incredible country, including recently, or I guess not so recently, but long before coronavirus, bringing my children to experience one of, I think, the most special places in the world. And today I am joined by someone super special. Mahita, you are the very best of our community. You are the very best of female leadership around the world, something I care about so much, and the very best of what can be done when we connect to each other. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sharon.
It's what we see so often is someone does good and it inspires other people to do good. But often the story behind this is one of real personal sacrifice. And I know in order to do this work, you've had to isolate yourself from your son and your mom. Talk to us about that. Do you ever regret starting this? Had such a big personal sacrifice and one that I know I admire so much.
I will never ever regret starting Caremongers India. There was a point in time when I was pulling 22-hour days just running Caremongers India, and it just wasn't fair to expose them to anything unnecessary. So the three of us who are the closest to each other were as far apart as we could be for a little over 2 months, and it was difficult not seeing them, but I think technology has made life a little bit easier, so we can do video calls on a regular basis. But it's not the same as, not getting a hug and a kiss every day. It was hard, but we got through it.
I think when people do things like you're doing, you don't just change the world, you change yourself. And so I'm wondering if you can share with us, how has Caremongers changed you? What are your biggest learnings? And what do you plan to do with those going forward?
For me, personally, my biggest learning has been self-confidence, perhaps, that nice guys don't finish last. It does pay to be kind. You're an individual, but you need community to survive. You need community to thrive, and you only get as much as you give. So the more you give, the more you receive. So essentially, to lean in, I think.
That's such a profoundly wonderful answer. Really great. Now, I know you had said before you wanted to ask me one question before we wrap.
So my question to you is, Cheryl, I'm being called a community leader or a community founder now, and you are so vastly ahead of our time in terms of setting up this global community that you did with Lean In. What were the pivot points that made you realize that there are millions of people across the world that can be impacted by Lean In?
I want more women in leadership and more underrepresented minorities in leadership. I want more diversity of thought. But we had this idea, some friends of mine and I, around Lean In circles, small groups of women that could support each other. So we launched Lean In, and it's just like your story, right? Which is we hoped we'd one day have 1,000 circles. The 50,000th circle got started last month in 180 countries. There are Lean In circles all over the world, and there's thriving Lean In circles in India. It's one of our most vibrant chapters, which is not surprising given the vibrancy of the so many different communities there. And it has to be ambition. We have to give women the permission to be ambitious. We have to give women the permission to think, I can change the world. And if there were ever an example of that, it would be you. So your community, Mahida, has had such a positive impact. Your mission, your drive, your commitment, you are an inspiration to me. I think you're an inspiration to everyone watching. And I just want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's been really, really nice talking to you too.